This is part 4 of my $45,000 grandma story. Alternative title, I'm no contact with my parents and I thought I could trust my grandma, and instead she stabbed me in the back and ended up being a flying monkey. But before I go any further, this is a reminder that I'm raising money for 2 families in... The first is Rhonda, who has several family members that are in need of urgent medical care, including her father, who's in dire need of heart surgery, and they have been stuck at this place in their goal for a long time. The second is Rabah, who we were able to get to their initial goal of $45,000, so they will be able to escape into Egypt after the border opens. However, that's not enough money for them to be able to survive, get food, find shelter, all of that stuff, so that's why the goal has been increased to $70,000. So I'm asking that for payment for this story, I'm asking that you give $5 to either this or this if you have over $1,000 in your bank account, and if you have under $1,000, you give $1 to $2 here. I post receipts every day of me giving that away. And if you can't do that, I understand. Engage over here, make a comment that is 9 words or more that's relevant to this specific video. No heart chains, no additional emojis, that cues off the Al Gore. Or you can purchase this shirt from the TikTok shop link. All commissions go to Rhonda or Rabah's family, as well as all profits go to Doctors Without Borders located here. And even if you don't want to purchase it, that's okay. Just click on the link, add it to your cart. That will help this video get seen. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to apologize in advance. This part may be like a little bit disjointed. I still am like remembering parts of my spending time with them. Like I spent time with them for like 6 hours that day. We talked about so much stuff that the conversation was disjointed. So me retelling it probably is going to sound disjointed. So after my grandma told me about my mom and how she treated my sister, she kept asking me about my middle sister, who went no contact with my family long before I did. She was rejected by my family for being out, the first one out in our family. And my grandma had done not great things with this sister, okay? And had talked about her behind her back in front of me, had misgendered her in front of me. And when that happened, like I called her out and she didn't do it again. But this is setting up, you know, that idea of like that implicit criticism of, well, she's not saying stuff about me to me, but she's saying stuff about my siblings to me. So that means she's probably saying stuff about me to my siblings and vice versa. Classic triangulation. And so she keeps asking me about my sister and if I talk to her, and I'm like, no, I don't. But even if I did, I wouldn't tell you because I'm not dragging her into this. Like, I'm allowing myself to be the guinea pig. I'm not going to subject my sister to that after what you did to her. And so I'm like not saying anything really about my sister besides just like, you know, I don't know. And I'm not going to talk about her. Again, should have been a red flag. She was trying to get information about my sister. But it's the way they do it, the way that they're like, I'm just so worried about her. I know she lives close to us and like, we love her so much regardless of what her beliefs are and that they're different than ours. Like, we just want to be able to love on her. And I was like, okay, that's great. But like, I'm not going to be in the middle of that. So no, thank you. And then we jumped to talking again about how like my grandma said that she had no idea that I was no contact, and I was talking about, you know, why I was scared to reach out because I didn't know what she knew and I didn't know if my mom had like primed her to not believe me and whatnot. And she's like, no, she didn't tell us anything about you being no contact, but what she did say is she said that you didn't want to speak to us and that we shouldn't send you gifts for your birthday, and that was so difficult for me. And I took this as genuine. As I say it out loud now, I'm like, okay, even though my mom was lying, if she told you that I was trying to set a boundary with you and they didn't follow it, like they sent me messages and emails, okay, which she admitted to. She was like, I just couldn't do it. It felt wrong. And the gift part was so difficult to not do. And I was like, well, I never ever said that I wasn't speaking to you all. I never said that like you couldn't send me gifts. And I explained a situation that I've talked about on here before, that like I told my parents that I didn't want to hear from them, I didn't want gifts from them, whatever, and that they sent me a card from my other grandma with a letter written in my dad's handwriting, trying to guilt trip me into talking to my grandma, and also a check. And I didn't deposit that check because that grandma has dementia and lives in memory care, and like she just doesn't need to be spending money on me. Like, I didn't cash it because I didn't feel comfortable cashing it. But of course, my parents decided to extrapolate that and turn that into Lauren doesn't want anybody in the family to contact her, even though that's not what she said. And also so that I can try to keep grandma on my side, my mom's side, speaking from my mom's perspective, because I think she really feared that if grandma talked to me, that it would make her turn on my mom, especially since my mom was the black sheep, as I've already said. So I'm like trying to process all of this. The fact that my mom kept this hidden from everyone, like the way she was able to do it was because when my grandparents got moved into assisted living, they started doing holidays with like each of the individual families separate. We used to do stuff all together, because that was my question. Like, did no one ask questions about this? Like when I wasn't at any of the holidays? And she was like, well, I just did stuff with your parents, and like they had some reason as to why you weren't there. So still, like, it is still in the back of my mind. Like, I haven't heard anything from any of my family members about this. No one besides my grandma's reached out to me at all. And the way she's reached out to me has been like, I love you, I miss you. Like, it's not been anything like, hey, we didn't see you, like, are you doing okay? Nothing direct or genuine. So I, again, was shocked that I'm able to have this direct conversation with my grandma. And I asked her, like, hey, you felt like my responses were short, or like you noticed I wasn't at holiday with my parents. Why didn't you reach out to me? Like, why didn't you ask me if everything was okay? Like, give me the opening to talk about this. And she was like, I was afraid of being rejected. I was afraid I would message you and you would ignore me, and I felt like I was rejected by your sister because she's no contact, and I like couldn't take that from another grandchild. And I was like, okay, that's like a human thing to feel, I guess. I should have focused on how her-centered that answer was, but you know, hindsight's 2020. She then is like pulling up her phone. She's wanting to show me a bunch of pictures. She's sending me pictures of my grandpa wearing this like Afghan that I made him several years ago that I crocheted. And she just keeps going on and on about how thankful she is that I came to visit, and she's like trying to make me food and stuff. Like, she's just being like a typical grandma, you know? And I keep saying, like, I'm so thankful that we were able to spend time together. Like, I'm excited to continue to do this because, again, this would have been the only familial relationship that I would have. I have no one outside of this. And she was being so validating. She knew all the right things to say. At that point, it would have been cynical for me to not believe her, because it seemed like, again, like it was adding up. Was it too good to be true? Yes, but like in the moment, and also with my history of trauma, like it's totally understandable why I was believing her. And I'm having a lot of compassion for myself. Like I don't think that this was my fault that things ended up this way. Also, as she was bringing up my sister, I actually came out to my grandma as bisexual. I never had come out to her before, and I told her, and her reaction was, congratulations. And my jaw was on the floor. This is a conservative evangelical woman, like such an out of character response. And I was like, okay, maybe her being alone and being here in her old age, she's like become more considerate or conscientious about this stuff. Like, or because she like wants her grandkids in her life and she realizes that she has to be like more accepting for that to happen. I don't know. And I was telling her the story of when I told my parents that I was bisexual, and my mom was like, why does that matter? You're married to a man. I had to explain that like being bisexual is more than just like the community, or more than just like who you're married to. It's about the community, and also like queerness is a big part of my life and whatever. And my grandma was like, that's a very unkind way to respond. Like, obviously you shared because you felt like it was an important thing about you to share. And again, I'm like, wow, my grandma understands validation. So then my grandpa's like listening to Mannheim's Steamroller, and my grandma pulls me into a different room, and she's like, I want to tell you this story. When I was really young, like 2 months old, my parents took me to their lake house, and my grandma was holding me. And in my grandma's words, she said, she was holding me and she looked down at me and she said, my sweet baby. And that my mom reacted by essentially snarling and saying this with like this growl or this very intense undertone of like, she's my baby, don't you ever say that to her again. And then snatched me out of her arms, and that she was like terrified of my mom in that moment. And I even pushed back a little bit when she said that. I was like, well, like, I was her child maybe she was trying to set a boundary with you, and my grandma was like, but it was the intensity with which she said it. All right, like and comment for part 5.